everybody, it's Bernie here from Stamp and Eat, and welcome to 2023. I hope you all had a fabulous Christmas and a very awesome transition into the new year. I am super excited about this year and all the new ideas and projects that I'm planning to bring to you. And so with that in mind, I thought what a better way to start the year off with a very fun card to make. I've been eyeing these waterfall cards for some months now, and then when I got my new product for that's going to be in the mini catalog that has launched on the 4th of January, I was very inspired by some ideas that I saw online, and typical me, I took what I saw and I changed it. So I'm going to show you at the end another waterfall card, my very first one that I made, that's more traditional. But with this one, I really wanted to show off the gorgeous stamp set that is now available in the mini catalog, which is called Dainty Delight. And I have featured that in the vintage card, which there's a tag up on your screen right now featuring that card with the same stamp set. I love florals. I just absolutely adore florals. So I wanted to highlight this big stamp in this waterfall card. So this is not the traditional way of a waterfall card. Normally when you pull it, there would be another bar there. But like I say, I really wanted to show off this stamp set and make it the feature. So shall we get started? I'm going to put all the measurements on the screen after I've edited this video, so you should be seeing them when you're watching this with all the measurements on the screen. So keep with me. It's not a hard card to make, but there are a few little tips that I want to pass on to you as we do that. So the first one is obviously we're going to use a standard card base, and it does need to have a vertical orientation to it. I'm sure you could do it horizontally, but I've not yet done that. And it's my standard 5.5 by 8 1/4, scored at 4 1/8, and I've just seen now this one's a little bit longer, so I will trim that when I'm done. But let's work on that side. I obviously didn't check that before I did that. So 8 1/4 by 5.5. Set your base to the side. Then you are going to need some cardstock. And I'm not going to rattle off these measurements because, like I say, I will have them all on the edited version of the card as well. So you're going to need some cardstock, and you're going to need some designer series paper. The designer series paper I'm using is the free celebration Dainty Delights that comes if you purchase for $110 New Zealand or more, excluding shipping. So I'm using the Blushing Bride cardstock, and the reason I've chosen Blushing Bride is because it coordinates as one of the colors for this paper that I've chosen. Now, if you're unsure of what paper works, you can always look either in your mini catalog where it shows you what colors coordinate with your paper, or you can actually look on the back of your designer series paper and they will tell you what works. So I've just used my Tombow to glue that down, and I'm going to set that to the side. Then you're going to need a cardstock strip, and as I've already mentioned, I'm going to put all the dimensions on, and you're going to have score lines. So what you need to do is you need to fold and burnish these score lines in the same direction. This is going to form the waterfall feature. This is going to be what we're going to mount the card onto. So this is now where we need to start paying attention, because the first thing I need to do is you're going to have a strip of cardstock with the matching designer series paper. If you want, you can do a contrast, and I do believe, I just want to check, yes, I did a contrast on the other card that I'm going to show you at the end of this video, featuring some other paper from the mini catalog and designer series celebration. So let's just mount this designer series paper on there. Now, ordinarily, you would think that we can mount this on straight away, and I made that mistake the first time. That's not what we're going to do. We're now going to take this waterfall feature, and we're going to put some strips of what's that stuff called? Double-sided tape or tear and tape over here, and that is going to be glued on, because this is going to become the waterfall, and it needs to come from behind because it's going to come over like that. All right, so let's glue that on, and you're just going to do a strip on either side. So I just want to make sure, yeah, so we're going to do it like that, and it's going to come around. Okay, that's the way I find it the easiest way to do it. Otherwise my brain just gets way too muddled. So just a little bit on either side of that biggest rectangle, and then just use a sharp, or you can use your nails, but I'm not going to, because I had my nails done the other day, and I was told by my nail technician that I'm too hard on my nail tips, and I figure that's because I paper craft. So I'm going to use my tools to lift up my paper. In this case, I'm using my Take Your Pick tool, and now I'm going to place this in the middle of that cardstock, so like so. Okay, all right, and that mechanism is coming around, and now I'm going to put double-sided tape or tear and tape a little bit on each of these sides, and that's going to keep this mechanism free, so that we can move it. All right, so now I'm lifting that as well with my Take Your Pick tool. Brilliant. So I have this mechanism is going to come around like that, and that's going to go onto my card. Now the tricky thing is, and you'll see this one is poking out at the top, that's because I didn't actually measure where I wanted this to end. So I would suggest, before you glue this down, that you just keep in mind, where do you want this to be? We can, of course, make sure that the cardstock we're going to glue down is not going to exceed it. So I'm going to put it around there, about over there. Okie dokes. Okay, so now we've got, if it's working properly, we've got our waterfall mechanism. Isn't that amazing? So we're going to keep that up like that, because I'm going to need to do the next step. The next step is, ordinarily you would have 3 squares of paper to glue on there, there, and there. But I don't want that, because I want the stamp to do its job in this case. All right, I want the whole stamp. So what I've done is I've cut the width, the correct measurement, and I've doubled it to create the length, and I'm now going to stamp on this whole piece of white cardstock, and then we're going to color it in, and I'm going to highlight this big stamp, as I've said to you. So I've already mounted it on my e-clear block, and it's a cling stamp, which I love, and I'm just lightly, you'll notice I do this differently, I lightly use my Memento black on the reverse side of the stamp, and that way I've got a lot more control over where how much ink is going on. I do want to make sure the tip, those flowers are in the picture, and I'm happy to lose stems, but I want those tips in. So I'm placing this down, just applying some light pressure just to make sure that all the flowers are done. And while I'm busy with this stamp, I'm just going to move that to the side, and I'm going to bring in some white cardstock that is going to be become my inner, and I'm just going to lightly repeat the same for the inner. And this time we're not using the whole stamp, so I'm not going to use ink the whole stamp, and I'm just going to offset that in the corner for my card inner. Oops, that didn't work. So beauty of stamping, we just turn it around. Okay, let's try that. Maybe I just need to go a little bit more. And that is another reason, that's a good example why I never ever glue my inner to my cardstock until I'm finished. Hopefully that's a better version. That's better. There we go. All right, let me just cover my memento before I make a mistake and clean off my stamp using my chamois so that there are no potential boo-boos happening. So I'll just turn that over so that doesn't bother us. Okay, so we've got this and we've got our inner, and we're going to do the same to both of them. So I'm just going to first concentrate on this one. When I looked at these flowers, they were very delicate, and I didn't really want to use Stampin' Up! Blends, but I wanted to create the idea that I've used Stampin' Up! Blends, so I'm actually using my blender pen. If you are a brand new stamper, I would suggest that you buy yourself a set. This was one of the first things I bought, because this way you can actually use this pen as a blending pen before you get into the more expensive blending pens, alcohol blending pens. So if you just want to start off as a brand new stamper, or even if you are a stamper on a budget, I would highly recommend just saving up for a blending pen like this, and you can do so many different things with it. So as you can see, what I like to do is I actually just put my tip into the ink pad, and then I'm just using very light strokes with the pen, and I'm not even re-inking it. And that's why I love using this, because it gives you so many different variations of color from the same ink. Now I'm just going to put my tip in a little bit more, and I'm now going to come in. So Stampin' Up! Makes stamps, and they actually put lines, oopsie, they put lines in your artist work where the shading needs to happen. So if you, like me, and are not artistically inclined, then you will be able to do your shading perfectly, because they're telling you where to go. Isn't that cool? It really is cool. Okay, I'm happy with that. So we just colored in all the leaves, and I used Old Olive for that. And you just clean off your brush like that. See, it's all clean. So now I can use my pink. So Blushing Bride is what coordinates with the paper, so I'm going to color in my flowers. And again, I'm going to leave some white space on my flowers. I'm not going to color absolutely everything in, because I personally think it looks much nicer when you leave some white space. Alright, so let's just, and look how quick and easy this is. I'm not putting a lot of effort into this. I honestly am not. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't color in my inner, so I'll have to go back. Now I'm just adding a little bit of that shading. Okay, just to make it look more interesting. And while I've got my pink out, let's just do the inside. I'll just swap over, and I will just need to go back. What I might just do is when I go back with the darker green, I'll just make these leaves the darker green. So there we go. So this is a blending brush. Don't mistake this for the marker pens, and don't mistake this for the alcohol blending pens, or blending pens. It's called a blending brush. Make sure you clean it off before you swap your colors. And now I'm just going to go in with Mossy Meadow, and because I missed that other one, I'm just going to make these leaves green with Mossy Meadow. I'm just too lazy to bring that other one back. Isn't that terrible? It's right behind me. I could do it, but I'm not going to. It's like, nah. Okay, so I'm leaving that one. And then with this one, I'm just going to bring these little touches of green into those little blossoms that I saw. And I'm just ever so slightly bringing some interest into the branches, but not a lot. There we go. That's all I want to do with that. Now, while I have these guys in front of me, I want to add a bit of a vintage look. Just make sure you recap your blending brush. So I've just used my brown blending brush that I've got brown ink on it. It probably had some crumb cake. I haven't even bothered to put new ink on it. And now I'm wondering whether I might need to, because it doesn't look like there's enough. Right, let's bring a little bit of crumb cake into that. So I really don't want a lot of ink, so I'm just going to bring it up, and I'm going to dab quite a lot off, because I don't want it too brown. I just want a touch of, there we go, a touch of vintage. And I'm going to do the same over the inside, just so that it just adds some interest. Okay, so that was a little bit of crumb cake and my blending brush. Now what I need to do now is I just need to bring my paper trimmer, and we're going to cut that in half and then mount it on some squares. All right, so I've cut it just 1/16 smaller than 2 1/4, and we're going to mount it onto some squares of Blushing Bride. Like that. And then this one. And then there's just one last bit of stamping we need to do before we can assemble this waterfall card. Brilliant. So we'll pop those to the side. We can actually glue this one onto the inner now that we've done that. So we'll pop that onto the cardstock interior. Okay, so that goes to the side. We need to just stamp on here. I've got Celebrate You, and I want to do that in mint macaron. And the reason I want to do it in mint macaron is just to keep it different. I just wanted a bit of interest in there. So let's just stamp that quickly with mint macaron and Celebrate You. And I am going to take it down to the end of the white, because a lot of that is probably going to go up inside the card, and you'll see that in a little while. And then that can be mounted onto a mint macaron square cardstock. Now you could of course keep all your cardstocks the same, but like I say, I wanted to do mine differently to what I've been seeing out there. Okay, now we get to the part where we are going to assemble this. So excuse me, you've got this waterfall mechanism that's going to come down like that, right? So that's going to be the end of it, and that's going to be the front of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up having the Celebrate You attached onto this bottom piece. We're going to have the bottom of the flower attached to that main piece, and we're going to have the top of the flower attached to that piece like that. Okay, that's what we're aiming to do, just so that you can see where I'm going with my plan. So on this, the first thing we need to do is bring back that card base, because I didn't do that on this card. I forgot to do that, and it's sticking out, so I want to avoid making that same mistake. So if I place my card base there, and don't worry about that. Actually, that looks quite pretty, but I'm not going to worry so much about that. If I bring this down flush with that, then I know that's going to fit into the card. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of tear and tape on that little rectangle. I hope that makes sense, that you're all following what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I'm releasing that paper. I'm still going to keep it in place, making sure this is level with the top. And now what I'm aiming to do is I'm aiming to bring the top of that square in line with the top, and I'm attaching it. Okay, now I can take this base away because I'm not going to use that right now. The next thing I need to do is I need to bring in the bottom of the flower. So I can decide here how much of this stem do I want to show. Do I want a lot of the stem? Do I want less of the stem? But what I do want to suggest is that you aim for something like a stem or the flowers to match it up. I quite like, because that's how the stamp goes, but we're not going to have all of it on display. I quite like that look. I'm going to aim for that. So what we're looking for here, if I lift this up, is this is going to move down, and we're going to be gluing it. We're going to be gluing it on this section, right? So not here, this section. So what we need to do is I'm going to bring this back. So this makes it feel like it's really hard, but it's actually not that hard. Bring this back to where I want those flowers, maybe even so. And making sure that your edges are matching up, I'm going to place a little line with a pencil, just a faint pencil line above where this needs to go, like that. And then I'm going to put my double-sided tape on the top. Now normally this is not how you would do it. You would normally paste your double-sided tape on there, but like I said, I've changed this around a bit because of the pattern. So let's just get that straight. Let's get that in. There's my pencil line. I'm lightly positioning it down. I haven't pushed it down yet. Making sure that my edges are matching. And now I'm applying pressure. Okay? Does that make sense? So now when I pull it, yes, you've got a blank space there, which you wouldn't normally have, but you've got your flower. And the last thing we need to do is the Celebrate You. Now, it's the same concept, excepting I need to make sure that the Celebrate You is not going to go too far out. And I do want it to come, actually no, I want it to come in a bit. And that's why I stamped it at the bottom. So the same concept, I'm going to Just make a faint line, ever so faint. Move that out the way. Actually, let's just pull this out. Did I make a faint enough line? Nope. So let's just get that straight, get that straight. Actually, what I'm feeling is it's butting right up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at the bottom, at the top of this piece here. Like that. Lift it up. And I'm going to take it in. Again, I'm not holding it down yet. Let's bring that into the camera, into the light. Making sure those edges are there and just adhering it. So now, if I pull this, I should get this movement, right? And up and down. Isn't that stunning? Now we can bring it onto our card base like that. All the way down so that it matches. So I'm going to glue this. Brand new glue, guys. Oh, it's so funny. It always seems to do this. Okay, bring in your card base. Making sure that is level. And eyeballing that. I will trim that off. Just want to bring that in. And there we go. Just press it down nice and firmly. The last thing we just need to do before we do the embellishments is just do the inner. And bring that in. And I'll just take it right up to the edge because I need to trim that card down. Okay. Last thing that's needed is embellishments. So I'm going to use the champagne rhinestones and popping one on the end, one on the end, and one last one. I'll just take a smaller one to celebrate you. And there we have the most beautiful waterfall card where I've broken the rules and I haven't made it a traditional, oops, let's just push gently. Do just go gently with it. It is still a paper craft. I've broken the rules because I wanted to feature the stamp. So let me show you one that I made that hasn't broken the rules. And that is this one where I featured the on the farm paper. So I've got my paper there, I've got a contrast paper, and I've used one of the new tags to bring that down. And as you can see, this one is very much works in its proper sense, where it's got the full waterfall card. But I also want to show you another card I made using the Dainty Delights, and that's this card over here, where I used the free celebration paper. I used that exact same stamp set, and then I just used some speckles and some of the new rhinestones that are in the mini catalog, and one of the new dies as well. And then I just die cut out the flowers, and so that's a whole different look using the same celebration paper and the same stamp set. So there you have a waterfall card that is not traditional, a traditional waterfall card, and then a card using the same Dainty Delight stamp set and celebration paper. I think they're all gorgeous, and I hope you do too. So thank you so much for stamping with me today. I would love it if you are following me or watching me for the first time to subscribe. Click the bell so that you can get notifications when I come with my newest projects on a Friday at 1 p.m. Auckland time. And yeah, it's so great to be back and to be sharing my love of papercraft with you. Thank you so much, and remember, until we meet again, stamp, eat, sleep, repeat.